My husband ran off with another woman and took my family to their wedding overseas. He texted, "Don't be home when we return. Once it's old, it's worthless to me." When they came back and saw what I'd done, their faces froze. They stared at the bare land, whispering one horrified question. I sat in my car watching and smiled. Can you imagine getting a text from your husband, from his wedding, to another woman in Croatia, telling you, "Don't be home when we get back. Once it's old, it's dead to me"? And then, the picture attached showed my entire family, beaming, champagne glasses raised, celebrating their new beginning. That's how my life imploded. I stared at that message, that photo, for exactly 3 agonizing seconds. Then I looked up. Across the street, a construction crew was tearing down an old building, floor by floor. Controlled demolition, they called it. And in that moment, I knew. I knew exactly what I had to do. They wanted me gone? Fine. But I'd make damn sure there was nothing left for them to come back to. The photo was still on my screen. I zoomed in, studying every single detail like it was a blueprint for my own destruction. Samuel, my husband of 12 years, was in the center, wearing a tuxedo I'd never seen. Expensive, perfectly tailored, the kind of suit that costs at least $3,000. Next to him was Clara Ashford, 28 years old. Blonde hair, soft waves, a white dress that probably came from some boutique in Boston I'd walked past 100 times, but never entered because I was always too busy working. But it wasn't Samuel or Clara that made my hands tighten around the phone until my knuckles ached. No, it was everyone standing behind them. My mother, Patricia, wore lavender, her favorite color, the same shade she'd worn to my wedding 12 years ago. She was beaming at the camera, champagne glass held high, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. Next to her, my father, Robert. He looked uncomfortable, sure, but he was there. Present. Participating. Not protesting. Not refusing. Just standing there like this was normal family behavior. My sister, June, held a bouquet, an actual bouquet, like she was part of the wedding party. Like she hadn't spent the last year telling me I needed to be more supportive of Samuel's career. More understanding when he worked late. More flexible when he canceled our plans. And Marcus. My baby brother. The one I put through college when my parents couldn't afford it. The one I helped with rent for 6 months when he lost his job. The one who called me his hero at his graduation. He was grinning. Chillingly grinning. Like attending my husband's wedding to another woman was just another fun family vacation. I sat there, in my car, outside the Meridian Tower construction site. Phone in my lap. My mind was reeling, trying to process what I was seeing. Trying to make it make sense. But it didn't. None of it made sense. Across the street, the demolition crew was working on a 1960s office building that had been condemned 6 months ago. I'd watched them start the teardown 3 days earlier. They weren't using explosives. This was surgical. Controlled. They removed windows first. Then interior walls. Then support beams. Floor by floor, section by section, the building was coming down in a carefully orchestrated collapse. The foreman stood near the perimeter fence, holding a tablet, monitoring every strike of the excavator. Nothing was random. Nothing was emotional. It was pure, calculated precision. That's when the clarity hit me. Absolute. Ice cold. I opened my phone's photo gallery and started scrolling backwards. 12 years of marriage in digital form. Our wedding day. Samuel looking at his phone during the reception. Our 5th anniversary trip to Maine. Him disappearing for hours, claiming he needed to take work calls. Last Christmas, when he insisted we spend it apart because he needed space to think. Every vacation where he was physically present, but mentally elsewhere. Every dinner where he checked his messages under the table. Every late night at the office that I believed, without question. I'd been building our future. He'd been building an exit strategy. Samuel Vaughn, my husband of 12 years, regional sales manager for a tech company. That's what he told people. That's what I told people. But regional sales apparently involved a lot of hotel rooms and very few actual sales reports. I'd never questioned it because I was too busy running my architecture firm. Too busy designing buildings and managing clients and working 80-hour weeks to notice that my husband was designing a completely different life. Clara Ashford worked in his office. Marketing coordinator. I'd met her once at a company holiday party 2 years ago. She'd seemed nice. Quiet. Forgettable. I remembered thinking she looked young. Too young to be taken seriously in a professional environment. Now I understood. She wasn't hired for her marketing skills. We never had children. Samuel always said the timing wasn't right. We should wait until the business was more stable, until we had more money saved, until we traveled more, until. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because I thought we were partners, building toward the same future. But he wasn't waiting for the right time with me. He was waiting for her. My phone buzzed again. A notification from Instagram. Samuel had posted the photo publicly. The caption read, "Starting our forever in paradise, surrounded by the people who matter most." The people who matter most. I wasn't in that photo. I wasn't in Croatia. I wasn't anywhere in his new life. I was home. In Boston. Sitting in my car outside a construction site, reviewing blueprints for the Meridian Tower, the biggest commercial project of my career. The project that would define my firm's reputation. The project I'd been pouring myself into for 9 months, while my husband planned his wedding to someone else. The demolition crew across the street brought down another section of the building. The excavator's arms swung precisely, connecting with a load-bearing wall. The structure groaned, buckled, collapsed inward exactly as planned. I watched the dust rise and settle. Then I opened my text messages and typed, "Enjoy Croatia. I'll make sure everything's handled." Samuel would read that and think I was being supportive. Understanding. The way I'd always been. The way he'd trained me to be over 12 years of marriage. But I wasn't being supportive. I was being strategic. I scrolled through my contacts and found Nicole Ferrara, my attorney. The woman who'd helped me structure my LLC when I started my firm. The woman who'd insisted 5 years ago that Samuel sign a post-nuptial agreement when I expanded the business. The woman I'd kept on retainer even though Samuel thought it was paranoid. She answered on the second ring. "Hazel, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice instantly sharp. I didn't waste time with explanations. "How fast can we move?" There was a pause. Nicole was sharp. She didn't need details to understand tone. "How fast do you need?" I looked at the photo again. Calculated the timeline. They land in 9 days. Nicole's laugh was low. And predatory. The sound of someone who'd built a career destroying unfaithful spouses in court. "Then, let's build you a beautiful new life in 8. I hung up and sat there for another moment, watching the demolition crew pack up their equipment for the day. The building that had stood for 60 years was now just rubble and rebar. By tomorrow, it would be hauled away. By next week, the lot would be cleared and ready for something new. Controlled demolition. That's what they called it. And that's exactly what I was about to do. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and started writing lists. Timelines. Asset inventories. Everything we owned. Everything I owned, technically. The house. The cars. The vacation condo in Vermont we'd visited twice. Bank accounts. Investment portfolios. Even the furniture. By 3 in the morning, I had 17 pages of notes. By dawn, I had a plan. I showered, dressed in my black suit, the one I wore for important client meetings, and drove to Nicole's office in downtown Boston. She texted me her availability at 6 a.m., which told me everything I needed to know about how seriously she was taking this. Her office was on the 14th floor of a glass building overlooking the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art on the walls, the kind of space that screamed success and didn't apologize for it. Nicole was already there when I arrived, 2 cups of coffee waiting on her desk. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. Just slid a manila folder across the polished wood surface and said, "I filed at 7 this morning. Divorce petition. Grounds, abandonment, adultery, and breach of post-nuptial agreement." I opened the folder. The paperwork was extensive and brutal in its precision. "We have evidence," Nicole continued, pulling out her tablet. "Credit card statements going back 18 months. Hotels. Restaurants. Jewelry purchases that never made it to you." She swiped through images. Receipts from places I'd never been. Charges on dates when Samuel told me he was working late. "There's more," she said, and her voice took on an edge. I recognized the tone she used when she was about to destroy someone in court. "Remember that laptop he left open last month? The one you mentioned when we had coffee?" I nodded. I'd been reviewing contracts one evening when Samuel's laptop chimed with a message notification. He was in the shower. The screen was unlocked. I'd glanced over, seeing Clara's name, and made a decision I didn't fully understand at the time. I'd started forwarding myself emails. "I went through everything you sent me," Nicole said. "We have 18 months of correspondence between Samuel and Clara. Planning. Fanning. And this." She turned the tablet toward me. "An audio file. Timestamp from 6 weeks ago." She pressed play. Samuel's voice filled the office. Tiny through the speakers, but unmistakable. Don't worry, babe. Once I get the money from the house, we can leave sooner. She'll never know until it's too late. Clara's laugh. Light. Carefree. You're terrible, but I love it. I love you, Samuel said. This time next year, we'll be in our place. She'll still be in that office, working herself to death, and we'll be living our actual lives. Nicole stopped the recording. I sat there staring at the tablet, feeling nothing. Absolutely nothing. The words should have hurt. Should have made me angry. Should have done something. But I just felt cold. He'll be served tomorrow morning at his office, Nicole said. 9 a.m. sharp. I'm having a process server hand-deliver the papers in front of his colleagues, including Clara. I looked up at her. Is that necessary? Nicole's smile was sharp. You're paying me to win, Hazel. Not to be nice. I signed the papers without reading them. Nicole had never steered me wrong. 5 years ago, when I'd expanded my firm and brought her on retainer, she'd insisted Samuel sign a post-nuptial agreement. I had resisted at first. It felt unromantic. Cynical. Like I was planning for failure. You're not planning for failure, Nicole had told me. You're protecting what you've built. There's a difference. Samuel had signed it without reading. I remembered him sitting at the same desk, barely glancing at the document, scrolling through his phone while Nicole explained the terms. He'd seemed annoyed by the whole process. Impatient. Now I understood why. He'd already been planning his exit. The postnup just made it more complicated. After signing, Nicole and I spent the next 3 hours going through finances. She had her assistant pull up every account, every asset, every line item from the past 12 years of our marriage. Joint checking account. My deposits totaled $673,000. Samuel's deposits totaled $3,400. I stared at that number for a long moment. $3,400 over 12 years. Where did his salary go? I asked. Nicole pulled up his personal account statements, the ones he didn't know I had access to because I'd been listed as a secondary on the account when we first got married, and he'd never removed me. Restaurants. Hotels. A recurring charge to a jewelry store in Cambridge. Monthly payments to a storage unit I'd never heard of. He's been building a separate life for at least 2 years, Nicole said. Maybe longer. The house was titled solely to my LLC. Purchased 3 years before we married as a business investment property. Samuel had never contributed to the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, or the renovations. Legally, he had no claim to it. The cars, both registered to my business. Company vehicles. The Vermont condo, purchased through the LLC. Samuel had never made a single payment. He owns nothing, Nicole said flatly. According to the postnup, any assets purchased or maintained during the marriage using your business income remains solely yours. He signed away any claim to marital property beyond what he directly contributed. So, the $3,400 I said is all he's legally entitled to. I had Nicole liquidate our joint accounts that afternoon. Every dollar I deposited over 12 years moved to a new account in my name only. I left Samuel exactly $3,400. Fair is fair. When I got home that evening, the house felt different. Not because of what was missing, but because of what I now understood had never really been there. I walked through the room slowly, seeing everything with new eyes. The living room furniture I'd chosen and paid for. The kitchen appliances I'd researched and installed. The artwork on the walls from galleries I'd visited alone because Samuel was always too busy. His side of the closet was empty. He'd packed for Croatia, but left everything else behind. His winter coats. His work clothes. His shoes lined up neatly on the rack I bought him 3 Christmases ago. He assumed he'd come back to it. That I'd still be here waiting. That this house, this life, would be his safety net while he figured out his new life with Clara. I started packing his belongings into boxes. Methodically, without emotion. His clothes went into donation bags. His vintage movie poster collection, the one he claimed was worth thousands, got carefully rolled and packed. Let him come back for it if he wanted it that badly. But something told me he wouldn't. By day 2, the boxes were piled in the garage. I'd called Goodwill. They'd pick everything up on Friday. Mrs. Kowalski caught me loading the last bag into my car that afternoon. She was in her garden, pruning roses, but I knew she'd been watching. Spring cleaning, she called, walking over. I forced a smile. Something like that. She looked at the boxes, then at me. Her expression shifted. Is everything okay with you and Samuel? I haven't seen him around lately. He's traveling, I said. Extended trip. Mrs. Kowalski nodded slowly, but her eyes said she didn't believe me. Well, if you need anything. I'm fine, I interrupted. Really? Just busy with work. That evening, I saw her standing on her porch talking to Mr. Peterson from across the street. Both of them kept glancing toward my house. Let them wonder. Let them gossip. In a few days, they'd have real news to discuss. Day 3 ended with me sitting alone in the living room, drinking wine from a bottle I bought last month for a dinner party we never had. Samuel had canceled at the last minute. Work emergency, he'd said. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Samuel had posted again. More photos from Croatia. Him and Clara on a sailboat. Sunset behind them. Her hand on his chest. His arm around her waist. My mother had commented, beautiful couple. So happy for you both. My sister June had tagged herself, best family vacation ever. #blessed. They were performing happiness. Broadcasting it. Making sure everyone saw it. While I sat here, in the house I'd bought, drinking wine I'd paid for, surrounded by furniture I'd chosen, systematically dismantling the life they assumed would be waiting when they returned. I didn't cry. I was done crying. Instead, I opened my laptop and started researching demolition companies in the Boston area. Westwood Demo and Excavation had a 5-star rating and a waiting list 3 months long. I called them anyway. The man who answered sounded tired. We're booked solid through January. If you want to leave your information. I need a house demolished in 5 days, I said. Full tear down. I'll pay double your rate. There was a pause. Ma'am, permitting a loan takes 4 to 6 weeks. We can't just. I'll have the permits by tomorrow afternoon. Another pause. Longer this time. What's the address? I gave it to him. Heard typing on the other end. That's a historic property, he said. 1920s colonial. Beautiful structure from the listing photos. You sure you want to tear it down? Positive. More typing. Then let me talk to Jack. He'll call you back within the hour. Jack Morrison called me 43 minutes later. His voice was rough, weathered by decades of shouting over machinery. My guy says you want a demo in 5 days, with permits handled by tomorrow. That's not how this works. It is if you want the job, I said. He laughed. Not amused, just surprised. Lady, I've been doing this for 30 years. Nobody gets permits that fast. Not even developers with city council connections. I'm an architect, I told him. I've designed half the commercial buildings going up in Boston right now. I know every planning commissioner by name. I know which ones owe me favors. The permits will be ready by 2 p.m. tomorrow. Silence. Then you're serious. Completely. Why the rush? I could have lied. Could have said I had buyers lined up or development plans ready. But something about Jack's directness made me answer honestly. My husband married someone else last week while I was home working. Took my entire family to Croatia for the wedding. Now they're coming back expecting everything to be exactly as they left it. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then what time tomorrow works for you? We met at the house at 10 the next morning. Day 4. Jack pulled up in a pickup truck that had seen better decades. Climbed out wearing work boots and a flannel shirt that had more paint stains than original fabric. He walked the property slowly. Studied the foundation. Checked the roofline. Examined the walls. Took photos and measurements and notes on a clipboard that looked like it had survived multiple construction sites. Solid structure, he said finally. Great bones. You could renovate this, flip it for $3 million easy. I don't want to renovate it. He looked at me. Really looked. Not the way men usually looked at me in business meetings, assessing, calculating, trying to figure out angles. This was different. Like he was trying to understand something that didn't make logical sense. You know, once it's gone, he said. No getting it back. I know. He nodded slowly. Wrote something on his clipboard. With expedited permits, we can start tomorrow morning. Demo takes about 8 hours for a house this size. Debris removal another day. You'll have an empty lot by Friday evening. How much? $47,000. That's with a rush job premium. I didn't hesitate. Done. Jack extended his hand. His grip was firm, calloused. I'll need those permits by 2. Like you said. You'll have them. I spent the rest of day 4 making calls. Every favor I'd built up over 15 years in the Boston architecture community, I called in. Planning commissioners I'd worked with on zoning appeals. Building inspectors who'd fast-tracked my projects. City officials I'd helped with pro bono designs for public spaces. By 1:30, I had every signature I needed. By 2, Jack had the permits in hand. I'll be damned, he said, looking at the paperwork. You actually did it. I told you I would. He folded the permits, tucked them in his truck. We start at 6 a.m. You want to be here? Wouldn't miss it. After Jack left, I went back inside the house. I needed to finish clearing Samuel's home office. Most of his stuff was already boxed, but his filing cabinet remained. I opened the bottom drawer and found a folder tucked in the back. Manila. Unlabeled. Hidden behind tax returns from 6 years ago. Inside were loan applications. 4 of them. All denied. All dated 6 months ago. Applications for a second mortgage on the house. My house, the one owned by my LLC. I read through each one carefully. Samuel had listed himself as sole owner. Had forged my signature on the initial documentation. Had claimed the property was jointly owned and that I'd verbally agreed to the loan. All lies. The applications had been rejected because the title search showed the house belonged to my business, not to Samuel or to us jointly. But he tried. He'd actually tried to steal equity from my property to fund his exit. I found more in the folder. Printed emails between Samuel and Clara. Samuel to Clara. The loan got denied again. Her name is on everything. I don't know how to get around it. Clara to Samuel. Can't you just forge her signature on a sale agreement? Samuel. Too risky. But don't worry, babe. Once I get the money, we can leave sooner. She'll never know until it's too late. Clara. You're sure she won't fight the divorce? Samuel. She won't. She's too busy with work to notice what's happening. By the time she realizes I'm serious, we'll be gone and she'll be stuck. With the legal bills. I photographed every page. Sent them to Nicole. She called back within 2 minutes. Hazel, this is fraud. Attempted fraud, at minimum. He forged your signature on legal documents. That's a felony. Add it to the divorce filing. I'm adding it to everything. This changes the whole case. He's not just a cheater. He's a criminal. I hung up and sat there in Samuel's office. The room I designed for him. The desk I bought him. The chair I'd assembled while he was out on one of his many business trips. He hadn't just been planning to leave me. He'd been planning to rob me. My phone rang. Emily. I almost didn't answer, but Emily had a way of knowing when something was wrong. If I ignored her, she'd show up at my door. I answered. Where are you? She said. No hello. No preamble. Home. I'm coming over. Emily, I'm fine. I saw the demolition permits posted on the city planning site. I saw your name on them. I'm coming over. Don't argue. She hung up. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with Thai food and wine. Emily Chin was my oldest friend. We'd met in architecture school, survived brutal professors and all-night design studios together. She'd been at my wedding, had been the one person who'd quietly asked if I was sure about Samuel. I should have listened to her then. She pushed past me into the kitchen, set down the food, opened the wine without asking, and poured 2 glasses. Talk, she said. So, I told her everything. The photo. Croatia. My family. The plan. The demolition scheduled for tomorrow morning. Emily listened without interrupting. But her face shifted from concern to something else. Something close to fear. Hazel, she said finally. What are you doing? What I should have done years ago. You're tearing down your house. It's my house. I can do what I want with it. That's not. Emily stopped. Started again. I get why you're angry. I get it. But this feels extreme. This feels like you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 12 years. Emily set down her wine, reached across the table, took my hand. You're not a vindictive person. You're not cruel. This isn't you. Maybe it should be, I said quietly. Maybe if I'd been less understanding, less accommodating, less willing to believe every lie he told me, he wouldn't have thought he could do this. Or maybe, Emily said, her voice gentle, you would have left him years ago and saved yourself this pain. We sat in silence for a moment. Promise me something, Emily said. Promise me you won't regret this. I looked at her. At my friend who'd known me longer than Samuel had, who'd watched me build my career and my marriage, and had probably seen cracks I'd refused to acknowledge. I promise, I said. But after she left, I sat alone in the kitchen and wondered if I was lying. Day 5 arrived with cold clarity. I woke at 5, dressed in jeans and my favorite black jacket, made coffee, and drove to the house. The Westwood crew was already there. 3 trucks. 6 workers. Equipment being unloaded with practiced efficiency. Jack saw me and walked over. Last chance, he said. Once we start, there's no stopping it. I looked at the house. At the windows I'd chosen. The door I'd painted. The porch where I'd sat countless evenings waiting for Samuel to come home. Start, I said. The machinery roared to life. Mrs. Kowalski appeared on her porch in a bathrobe, eyes wide. Other neighbors emerged. Mr. Peterson. The Jones. The retired couple from the corner who always waved but never spoke. Mrs. Kowalski rushed over. Hazel, what's happening? I smiled, took a sip of coffee. Renovation. Full demo. Starting fresh. But where will you live? I've made arrangements. The wrecking balls swung. Connected with the east wall. The wall where Samuel had hung his vintage movie posters. The impact was deafening. The wall crumbled, and I felt nothing. By noon, the house was rubble. By 3, the second floor was dust. By sunset, there was nothing left but broken pieces scattered across the lot, like the remains of a life I no longer recognized. I stood there watching until the crew packed up their equipment and Jack approached, wiping his hands on his jeans. You okay? He asked. I didn't know how to answer. I felt empty. Lighter. Free. Terrified. All of it at once. Yeah, I finally said. I think I am. Jack nodded, didn't push. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 to haul the debris. Should have the lot cleared by evening. I thanked him and watched his truck disappear down the street. Then I stood alone in the growing darkness, staring at what used to be my home. Day 6 arrived with gray skies and the rumble of debris removal trucks. I was there at dawn again. Couldn't stay away. Needed to see every piece of it disappear. The crew worked with mechanical efficiency. Front-end loaders scooped up chunks of what used to be walls and floors and ceilings. Dump trucks backed up, filled, drove away again and again. Each load carrying away another piece of 12 years. I watched the kitchen island get loaded into a truck. The marble countertops I'd chosen from a supplier in Cambridge. The custom cabinets I'd designed myself. We'd eaten our first meal in this house at that island. Take out Chinese because we were too exhausted from moving to cook. Samuel had toasted with a beer bottle. To our future, he'd said. I wondered if he'd already been planning his exit then, or if that came later. The mantle went next. I'd hung our wedding photo there for 6 years before taking it down. I told myself it needed reframing. The truth was, I couldn't look at his smile anymore without wondering if it had ever been real. The deck we built 3 summers ago, the one where we were supposed to grow old together, drinking coffee and watching sunsets, was broken into pieces and hauled away by 11. By afternoon, the lot was nearly clear. Just dirt and scattered debris. The crew brought in a grader, leveled everything, smoothed it out. By evening, it was done. I stood at the curb, staring at the empty space where a $2 million home had existed 24 hours ago. A woman jogged past, stopped, looked at the lot, then at the neighboring houses, then back at the lot. Didn't there used to be a house here? She asked. I turned to her, kept my expression neutral. Must be thinking of a different street. She frowned, clearly confused. I could have sworn. She shook her head. Never mind. Sorry. She jogged on. I watched her go and felt something close to satisfaction. It was working. I was erasing us. My phone rang. June's name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hazel. Her voice was bright, cheerful, completely oblivious to what she'd participated in. We're having the best time. Croatia is gorgeous. You should see the beaches. The food is incredible. And the wedding was just. I got Samuel's text. I interrupted. Silence. Then, oh. That? Her tone shifted immediately. Less bright, more defensive. Look, she continued. We didn't want to get involved in your marriage problems. But Samuel said you two had been over for a while. He said you knew about Clara. That you'd both agreed to. I agreed to nothing, I said. My voice came out colder than I intended. He's lying to you. He's lying to all of you. June sighed. That exasperated sound she always made when she thought I was being difficult. You always do this, Hazel. Always assume everyone's against you. But Samuel loves you. He needs something different now. Someone who makes him happy. The words landed like a physical blow. Someone who makes him happy, I repeated slowly. I made him happy for 12 years, June. I put you through college when Mom and Dad couldn't afford it. I helped them with house payments when Dad lost his job. I've held this family together while all of you. We have to go. She cut me off. The reception's starting. We'll talk when we get back. Okay. The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, processing what had just happened. They weren't just attending his wedding. They were defending him. They'd chosen his side. All of them. I called Nicole. I need to move faster, I told her. They land in 3 days. Already on it, she said. Come to my office tomorrow. I have something you need to see. I met Nicole at her office on day 7. The skyline outside her windows was gray with clouds threatening rain. She had a folder waiting, thicker than the others. I did some digging on Clara Ashford, Nicole said, sliding it across her desk. Turns out your husband has interesting taste in women. I opened the folder. Financial records. Background checks. Family information. Clara Ashford wasn't just some 28-year-old marketing coordinator living paycheck to paycheck. She came from money. Serious money. Her father, Richard Ashford, owned Ashford Auto Group, a chain of luxury car dealerships across Massachusetts, 17 locations. Revenue in the hundreds of millions. Clara's trust fund was worth over $2 million. She doesn't need Samuel's money, Nicole said. But Samuel definitely needs hers. She flipped to another section. Bank statements showing wire transfers from Clara to Samuel over the past year. $10,000 in March. $15,000 in June. $25,000 in September. $50,000 total. What was he telling her? I asked. Nicole pulled up emails she'd subpoenaed from his account. Samuel to Clara, the house is almost paid off. Once the divorce is final, I'll have access to the equity. We can buy that condo in Miami you liked. Clara to Samuel, how much equity are we talking? Samuel, at least $1 million, maybe more. She doesn't pay attention to finances. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. I read it 3 times. He's been conning her, I said slowly. Nicole nodded. Probably the same way he tried to con you. Except Clara's family has money and connections. Her father's lawyers are already involved. They had her sign a prenup before the wedding. Samuel gets nothing if the marriage ends. Does he know that? I don't think so. Based on these emails, he thinks he's marrying into wealth. He has no idea he just signed away any claim to her trust fund. I leaned back in my chair, processing. So, he's not just a cheater, I said. He's a con artist. A bad one, Nicole agreed. But yes. Suddenly, my revenge felt bigger than just me. This wasn't just about what he'd done to me. It was about stopping him from doing this to someone else, even if that someone else was Clara. What do we do with this? I asked. Nicole smiled. We add it to the divorce filing. Show the pattern of financial manipulation. Show that he forged your signature trying to access equity. Show that he's currently attempting to defraud another woman. It makes our case airtight. I left Nicole's office feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Purpose. That evening, alone in my new apartment, the penthouse I'd rented last week in Back Bay, with skyline views and no memories, I sat down at my desk and pulled out a sheet of paper. I started writing. Dear Mom. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Everything I'd never said. Everything I'd kept buried for 12 years. For my entire life, really. How her constant criticism made me feel like I was never good enough, never smart enough, never feminine enough. How she always took Samuel's side in every argument, telling me I worked too much, wasn't warm enough, didn't know how to keep a man happy. How she chose to attend his wedding to another woman while her own daughter was falling apart. I wrote about the loneliness, about burying myself in work because home stopped feeling like home years ago, about trying to fix something that Samuel had already decided was broken, about how I kept trying to earn her approval and never understanding why it was always just out of reach. I wrote until my hand cramped, until the words blurred, until there was nothing left to say. Then I folded the letter carefully, slid it into an envelope, and wrote Patricia Monroe across the front. I held it for a long moment. Then I tucked it into my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd send it. Maybe I'd keep it as a reminder that some things are better left unsaid. Some bridges are better burned than crossed. I poured wine and stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. In 2 days, they'd land at Logan Airport. In 2 days, they'd drive to the house, expecting everything to be exactly as they left it. In 2 days, they'd see what I'd done. And I'd be watching. Day 8 began with paperwork. I met Tom Brennan at a coffee shop in Cambridge, halfway between his office and mine, the kind of place with exposed brick and overpriced lattes that Samuel always complained about. Tom was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a leather portfolio and reading glasses perched on his nose. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes and hands roughened by decades of construction work, the kind of man who'd built things his entire life and understood the weight of what gets torn down. He stood when he saw me, shook my hand firmly. Hazel, good to see you. We sat. He opened the portfolio, pulled out the deed and transfer documents. This is a hell of a lot, he said, reviewing the papers one more time. Prime location, great zoning. I'm still surprised you're selling. Property like this doesn't come available often. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. The heat felt grounding. Time for a change, I said simply. Tom nodded. Didn't push. He signed where his attorney had flagged, then slid the documents across the table. I signed my name on 6 different pages. Witnessed. Notarized. Final. Just like that, $3.2 million transferred into my business account. Tom shook my hand again. Good doing business with you. And if you ever need architectural work for future developments, give me a call. I've seen your designs. You're good. I will, I said. Thank you. He gathered his papers, stood, paused. I hope whatever you're starting fresh from. I hope it's worth it. I watched him leave, then sat alone at that table for another 20 minutes, staring at the signed documents in front of me. The house was gone. The money was mine. Samuel and my family were returning tomorrow. There was no going back now. I drove to the parking garage where I'd left my car and sat behind the wheel for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, breathing. Slowly, deliberately. I wasn't scared, but I wasn't entirely sure I was okay either. The penthouse I rented last week was in Back Bay, 17th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. 2 bedrooms, even though I only needed 1. Modern kitchen with appliances I'd probably never use. The kind of place I'd always wanted, but never suggested to Samuel because he thought downtown living was too flashy and not practical. I'd moved in 3 days ago with the few things I'd taken from the house. My clothes. My laptop. My favorite chair from the home office. Everything else was new. Furniture I had ordered online and had assembled by professionals. Dishes I'd never eaten off of. Towels that still had tags. It was beautiful. It was also completely empty of anything that felt like me. I was unpacking the last box, books mostly, when my doorbell rang. Emily stood in the hallway holding 2 bottles of wine and an expression that said she was prepared to stage an intervention. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into the apartment. She set the wine on the kitchen counter, surveyed the space with the critical eye of someone who'd known me for 15 years. Nice place, she said. Sterile, but nice. I just moved in 3 days ago. You've had time to make it feel like home. She opened one of the wine bottles without asking, poured 2 glasses, handed me one. Except you're not trying to make it feel like home. You're hiding. I took the wine. I'm not hiding. You're isolating, Emily said, settling onto my couch. You're not answering my texts. You're not coming to yoga. You've canceled lunch 3 times. You're disappearing, Hazel. I sat beside her, stared out at the city lights beginning to glow in the dusk. I'm fine. Just busy. Busy demolishing your life. She turned to look at me. Not accusing, just sad. You used to talk to me about everything. Now you're like, I don't know. Like you're somewhere else. Like you've already left and your body just hasn't caught up yet. I took a long drink of wine. I am somewhere else, I said quietly. The person I was, the one who believed in love and family and partnership, she's gone. She died when that photo came through. This. I gestured at the apartment. At myself. This is what's left. Emily set down her wine, reached over, and took my hand. What if you regret this? The question hung in the air between us. Then I'll live with it, I said. But at least it'll be my regret. My choice. Not his. Emily squeezed my hand. I'm worried about you. I know. I'm not saying what you did was wrong. I'm just saying. She paused, searching for words. I'm saying make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. Not because you're hurt. Not because you're angry. But because it's actually what you want. It's what I want, I said. But even as I said it, I wondered if I believed it. Emily stayed for 2 more hours. We drank wine, talked about her work, her life, anything but mine. When she finally left, she hugged me tight at the door. Call me tomorrow, she said. After whatever happens, call me. I promised I would. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my new bed in my new apartment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of downtown traffic and my own thoughts spiraling. Tomorrow they'd land. Tomorrow they'd see. I must have drifted off around 2 because I woke at 3:17 from a dream that felt more real than the waking world. I was walking through the house, but not the demolished version, the complete version, every room intact, every piece of furniture in place. Samuel was there. Not the 40-year-old man who'd betrayed me. The younger version. The one I'd met at a mutual friend's party 16 years ago. The one who'd made me laugh. The one I'd fallen in love with. Why are you doing this? He asked. I tried to answer but couldn't form words. I walked through rooms, touching walls that no longer existed. The kitchen. The living room. The bedroom. My mother appeared in the kitchen wearing that lavender dress. "You were always so cold, Hazel," she said. Her voice was gentle, but the words were knives. No wonder he left. I woke up gasping, tangled in sheets, heart pounding. 3:17 a.m. I got up, poured water with shaking hands, stood at the window, looking out at Boston's sleeping skyline. Tomorrow they'd land. Tomorrow they'd see what I'd done. Tomorrow everything would change. I should have felt triumphant. Vind.